We got Sankirtan book ribbon. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakachaja Sutara Sutashishima Divine Grace Abhaya Charanabinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jayanathi Legal Prabhupada Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakachaja Sutara Sutashishima Divine Grace of the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Govinda Gopinath Chamakund Radha Kundgiri Govardhan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi all glory to some of the devotees all glory to some of the devotees all glory to some of the devotees all glories to Sri Guru Sri Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada. You, Arjun. Reading for Satsarup Maharaja Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled Chant, Hare Krishna, and Fight. So reading about Prabhupada's description of his room in Bombay, Juhu. He had the penthouse. Beautiful view, beautiful room. Where is that? Where do we say? Okay, so we're at the top of, in case anyone's following, the top of page 355 in volume 6. That Prabhupada would not take any morning walks went without saying. He wasn't feeling good at this time. Everyone closely involved in Srila Prabhupada had come to accept a new way of living with no morning walks and very few classes. Someone suggested that Prabhupada might like to walk on the roof, but even that seemed to be too difficult. No, one story I can go, said Srila Prabhupada. Not now, but I can go. So you are trying so much for my comfort. I do not know whether I shall be able to repay you, but I shall try my best. It is not possible to repay your debt. You are so kind. So I can simply pray to Krishna to give his blessings to you so that you may remain very steady in devotional service and preach his message all over the world. Otherwise, I have no other means. Without your help, I could not do anything. So you are very kind. Kindly continue your cooperation. This is the movement for para upakara, doing good for others. I have got report from our other temples all over the world. They are doing very nice, is it not? Other temples outside India, they are doing very nice. Sarup Damodar, who had recently come from the West, told about the successful standard of devotional service in the temples there. Prabhupada said he wanted silence so he could do his work. And he told a little story about a woman whose tinkling bracelets disturbed her husband. The husband took one bangle away, but still he was disturbed by the tink, tink, tink. He took away another bangle and another until there was only one left. Then there was no more tink, tink. Prabhupada specifically asked his secretaries not to gather and talk in the outer rooms. Remain always one, said Srila Prabhupada, and read books. Then there will be no noise. And as soon as you become two, tink, tink, tink. That I don't want. It won't happen, said Tamal Krishna. If anyone comes to see me, I will go out of the apartment. Yes, said Srila Prabhupada. In this way arranged, it should remain always quiet and serene. These are your quarters, said Tamal Krishna. No one else should come. And we shall arrange for seeing our own men at a time, said Srila Prabhupada. But the principal should be silence. That will be all right. I will be free to work. Prabhupada continued to appreciate his new situation. The rooms were well ventilated with plenty of sunlight. Other ISKCON buildings like the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London were very, very good, he said. But in most seasons, you couldn't open the doors or windows because of the cold. You have to remain packed up, he said. In Detroit and London, you cannot open a window. But here in Bombay, the temperature was ideal, and the area outside Prabhupada's window was verdant. Everyone knows that word, verdant, full of greenery. You've been to Prabhupada's rooms in Bombay? Every window is like a little balcony. And you go up and you can look outside the front courtyard. Beautiful. Days went by and most devotees in Bombay never got to see Prabhupada. They were all used to having him come down in the morning and walking with him for an hour on Juhu Beach. And they were used to having him come to greet the deities, give classes, and give darshan in the afternoon. He had always been open, especially in India, allowing anyone to see him at almost any time. He had always received them warmly and listened to their problems or questions with great sympathy. So for them not to be able to see him, even while he was living in their midst, was traumatic. Only 2 or 3 secretaries stayed with him. And whenever other devotees came into his room to see him, they would feel that they were taxing him and would leave at the first opportunity. Unexpectedly, one morning, Srila Prabhupada appeared in the temple room, and the few devotees removed Prabhupada's picture from the Vyasa-san so he could sit down. He hadn't given any warning that he was coming, and many of the devotees were absent, but the word spread that Prabhupada was there, and the devotees came running. So why were there no devotees? Should be a lesson. Prabhupada is always here. But sometimes you're thinking, oh, Prabhupada's in there, so I don't have to go. After the Guru Puja Arti, Srila Prabhupada spoke to the assembly of devotees. He said he was sorry that he couldn't come down more often and that he wanted to cook for all the devotees and serve them. On Sunday, he said he would cook a feast and invite all the devotees up to his quarters. I shall come daily to the temple, he said. and I shall remain up to 8 for our darshan and talks if there is any comment. Generally, every day it will be done, and on Sunday you can fix up some time. I will speak in the evening. And then Krishna's desire as he likes. But for the time being, this arrangement. Prabhupada's humility and his exactly reading the minds of the devotees made them feel ecstatic love for him. Some of them had even been thinking that Prabhupada had forgotten them and that other things had become more important for him. But now he was reassuring them. Although he appeared to be incapacitated, he was fully reciprocating with his disciples. He was telling them that as they were controlled by him, so he was controlled by their loving service. Srila Prabhupada then explained the significance of Guru Puja, analyzing some of the words in the song the devotees sang each morning during the ceremony. So the necessity is prema bhakti, he said. Prema bhakti jahoiti avijja vinasa jate dibya gyan. So what is that dibya gyan? Prabhupada explained that it was the duty of the Guru to awaken dibya gyan, or superior knowledge of the self. Because the Guru reveals dibya gyan, he is worshipped. For the non-devotees, dibya gyan is never manifest, and one thinks of himself in terms of his body, as American, Hindu, or Muslim. So we worship the Guru, said Prabhupada, because he gives us superior knowledge, not this knowledge of how to eat, how to sleep, how to have sex life, and defend. Generally, the political leaders, the social leaders, they give this knowledge, how to eat, how to sleep, how to have sex, how to defend. The Guru has no business with these things. The Guru has no business with these things. He has dibya gyan, superior knowledge, that is required. This human form of life is an opportunity to awaken that. Dibya gyan hriday prakashita. And if he is kept in darkness about that dibya gyan, then life will be lost. Remember this. It is a very risky life to be once again thrown into the waves of birth and death. We do not know where we will go. It is very serious. Krishna consciousness is dibya gyan. It is not ordinary knowledge. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 10th Chapter, text number 10. Chapter titled, Divisions of the Creation. Vidura Vacha Yatata Baurupasya Yatata Baurupasya Hare Adbhuta Kamana Hare Adbhuta Kamana Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu Yatavanayanak Prabhu. Please repeat. Vacha Yatata Baurupatya Hare Adbhuta Kamana Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu Vidura Vacha Yatata Baurupasya Hare Adbhuta Kamana Kalakyang Lakshanam Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu Vidura Vacha Yatata Baurupasya Hare Adbhuta Kamana Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu Vidoro Vacha Yatata Baurupasya Hare Bhuta Kamanaha Nakakyam Lakshanang Brahma Vidoro Vacha Yatat Baurupasya Hare Bhuta Kamanaha Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu. Ladies, Vidoro Vacha Yatata Baurupasya Hare Bhuta Kamanaha Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu. Vidoro Vacha Yatata Baurupasya Bhuta Kamanaha Kalakyang Lakshanang Brahman Yatavanayanak Prabhu. Vidoro Vacha. Vidura said, Yata, as, Ata, you have said, Bahurupasya, having varieties of forms, Hare, of the Lord, Adbhuta, wonderful, Karmana, of the actor, Kala, time, Akyam, of the name, Lakshanam, symptoms, Brahman, O learned Brahmana, Yata, as it is, Varnaya, please describe, Na, unto us, Prabhu, O Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidur inquired from Maitreya, O my Lord, O greatly learned sage, kindly describe eternal time, which is another form of the Supreme Lord, the wonderful actor. What are the symptoms of that eternal time? Please describe them to us in detail. Please repeat. Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O my Lord, O greatly learned sage, kindly describe eternal time, which is another form of the Supreme Lord, the wonderful actor. What are the symptoms of that eternal time? Please describe them to us in detail. Purport. The complete universe is a manifestation of varieties of entities, beginning from the atoms up to the gigantic universe itself. And all is under the control of the Supreme Lord in his form of Kala, or eternal time. The controlling time has different dimensions in relation to particular physical embodiments. There is a time for atomic dissolution and a time for the universal dissolution. There is a time for the annihilation of the body of the human being, and there is a time for the annihilation of the universal body. Also, growth, development, and resultant actions all depend on the time factor. Vidura wanted to know in detail the different physical manifestations and their times of annihilation. Om Jnana Tamananda Shagaranjana Shlakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankai Tegaram Yat Kipatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Interesting to read the exchanges between the great sages who are engaged in these different topics, which Lord Brahma has also previously elaborated upon. But for the benefit of the fallen conditioned souls like us, like me, anyone who has read Brahma Samhita and the purports by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Jiva Goswami and knows that this is not a subject matter to trifle with. And so as much expansion and explanation as possible is welcome, especially in Kali Yuga, where people are, what? Manda samanda matayo, manda bhagya upadutta. Everything is diminished, right? The lifespan, now maximum 100 years. And how many people do you see living to be 100 years? And the brain capacity, what is the brain capacity? 25% or less, right? We see, it was a very common thing some years back. People would proclaim that the human being uses at the utmost 15% of his brain. How are they figuring that? But it's close, right? 25%. Probably correct, 15%. Hardly anybody applies intelligence to anything. No analytical capability whatsoever. Just open the brain and pour in garbage, right? We previously described, right? First thing you learn in Psychology 101. Ekachakra Pran wasn't here for that class. G-I-G-O. Do you know what that means? G-I-G-O. Garbage in, garbage out. Right? First thing they teach you. So they know this. Psychologists know this. And they used to teach it in college, but they don't do that anymore. Why? Because they don't want you to use critical thinking. They just want you to accept. So it's no more. And why did Prabhupada, people used to argue, Prabhupada was so heavy. Oh, slaughterhouse education. You know, how was he saying? But that's what it means. You see, what does that slaughterhouse education mean? You see the animals in the stock pens leading up to the actual, they have so many nice names for it, you know, this, what do they call it? What's that term for a slaughterhouse? Abattoir. How do they say it in French? Abattoir. Sounds pretty harmless, right? Let's go to the abattoir, you know, and we'll have a party. No, so all these animals are in the stockyard, and one after another, they're being led into this horrible, unimaginable, horrible place. You know? And every other cow is just munching on whatever grass or food is available in that pen, and one after another. And you have to think, okay, so one cow goes in and he doesn't come out. Where does he go? What are the other cows thinking? But this is the nature of the situation now. People are going to college and they've seen. And Prabhupada uses that analogy as well, not just slaughterhouse education. They go in and their intelligence is completely slaughtered. They forget how to think. And they come out completely molded, however they want them to be indoctrinated. So, you know, don't wonder when Srila Prabhupada uses these terms, slaughterhouse education. And don't be afraid to use them. This is the point. People are very fond. Oh, no, come on. Very proud. Right? What did Prabhupada say? PhD. What does PhD mean? What did Prabhupada say? Fully dog. Fully dog. PhD. Fully dog. You know, this is not, we're not trying to discourage people, but at the same time, we should emphasize what is real knowledge by giving them an opportunity to have access, which is why we take such pains to distribute these books and put them in the hands of people, because we're trying to save them. It's like save the, you know, we have in Vrindavan, we have Save the Cow, Care for Cows, you know, Save the Cow and, you know, all these other places, Gita Nagari, Alachua. So the real effort of the Krishna conscious movement is to save the living entity, save the jiva. Has anyone copyrighted that yet? We should think about that. Save the living entity. This is our main business. All these other things are secondary. Whatever they're nice or this and that. But our main effort, and Prabhupada always emphasized, is book distribution. And this is such an important point that it bears mentioning every single opportunity. Especially in a situation where we have such facility. And Prabhupada used another term. Responsibility means facility. So to the extent that we expand our responsibility, to that extent, the facility will come. Similar to that aphorism, use it or lose it. It's like if we don't preach, we don't go out and engage with the living entities, what is the use of this, what we're doing here, reading? What's the point? We've already accepted that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And yes, we read more for our continued edification. This helps us to remain strong, no doubt. But if we don't use this knowledge interacting with the fallen conditioned souls, then it becomes stale. And then you always end up saying, oh, what was that verse? What was that verse? Sometimes you say, what was that verse? Vasangsi Jiranani Yatavihaya. Oh yeah, now I remember. Yes. So we have to, these are the analogies. They're perfectly fit for describing to the living entity how he's not this body, how he's progressing from one stage to the other. This is all there. Everything is there. But we have to engage. Otherwise, it's like a covered flame. What's the purpose? What's the point? Not spreading the light. We have all this knowledge. Amongst here, just in this room alone, we have hundreds of years or more of knowledge, in all these devotees. Just ready to be sent out to engage. So that's, something we should always keep in mind. Whatever we're doing, it has to have that integration. It's not that we're all in the temple or all outside. No, everything is there, complete. And that's, what Prabhupada would consider to be expert. He also gave that definition. Anyone know Prabhupada's definition of expert? No? Master? No. Close. No. Quickly and efficiently. Quickly and efficiently. So he was always encouraging us, Allen Ginsberg, when he met Srila Prabhupada, and he gave that forward in the original purple Gita, and in other places, he sort of described meeting Prabhupada, and what he was giving him was called Hindu granny wisdom. That's the term that Allen Ginsberg used, Hindu granny wisdom. But it meant, it was a, what you could say, a compliment, because the knowledge coming from the elders should be respected. And sometimes it comes in this form of aphorisms, like so many things. Look before you leap. There's an old aphorism I would hear from my English Irish side of the family. Look before you leap. And when you're young, you have no idea what are these people talking about? Why are they saying this? But when you're older, you realize, yes, obviously, know the consequences, know what's coming next. Don't do things without sufficient forethought. So Srila Prabhupada was giving all these different little nuggets of nectar, wisdom. And they even have, Satya Maharaj also had that book, little drops of nectar. And these are relishable for the devotees. Because Prabhupada was giving to different devotees at different times during these darshans so much nectar. Who can imagine? The whole movement was running. It's like filling up the gas tank. kind of runs down. And then Prabhupada would come to the temple and fill everybody up, for another year. So this was, it was very special. And now, we have to maintain that enthusiasm through constant contact. Just like people have these mail order mailings, they're trying to maintain their business or expand it, and have these methods. One is called constant contact. You see the little email in the bottom when you get something and it says constant contact. Constantly, you're receiving these things in your inbox from all different types of functions. But it has nothing to do with Krishna. But it's a hint that this is the method by which we maintain Krishna consciousness. It's constant contact with Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada's lectures, Srila Prabhupada's devotees, who are constantly tushanti cha ramanti cha. It's not just Krishna that we're constantly remembering and associating together, which brings him there. And like we're reading in the Nectar Devotion and Krishna book, that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So how did he appear to leave Vrindavan? How did he go to Mathura and kill Kamsa? But Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So then Rupa Goswami describes that Krishna, his bhava form remains eternally. So that means his bhava form is there now. If you have the constant contact consciousness to consider that. So one has to practice this constant Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada used this as the definition of Krishna consciousness. Always thinking of Krishna. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me. Right? So we shouldn't minimize this association of devotees. Sometimes people think, oh, I'll skip this program or I'll skip that program. But that's a selfish attitude. Because the more devotees there, the more enthusiasm. Why? Because it's just like adding, that whatever Krishna consciousness you have to that group. Therefore, that surcharges the entire association. So this is just like Ram Roy Prabhu is always saying, more people come out on the Harinam. Everybody come out. Why? Because, it's when you have one or two persons, it's one thing. And if you have 10 people, it's different. And the energy is there. The enthusiasm is there. The effect is there, right? And the result is there. So it's not just by some edict from the temple authority or whoever that you should come to the temple at certain times, Mangalarati, Guru Puja, even Japa, all these things have beneficial effect. So in this time factor, this is another very interesting, we don't want to, it's easy to become. I'm not on the level of Bhakti Prabhav Maharaj or Chandrasekhar Maharaj, who gives such detailed, super excellent classes. But I remember how Srila Prabhupada would explain that the one analogy he used was that of a roll of film or a movie. It's all made up of separate frames. So you can see each one, and each one is slightly different, but put them all together and there's continuity, and it seems to be moving continuously. But actually, time is just what? Fractions of moments. So one's life is just like that, essentially. Just frames. What do they say? The materialists, the karmis, they have a common revelation that at the time of death, one's life flashes before him. Or what do they say? Just like a movie. So that's how time is there, at least in the material sense, because it exists nowhere else. Everything is condensed into this moments by moment, frame by frame aspect of existence, from boyhood to youth to old age, right? And what are those other 6 distinctions, right? Birth, growth, maintenance, reproduction, dwindling, and vanishing, right? So this is also time. It exists nowhere else. It's there inherent, just like fire is in wood. So in every single living, anything that exists has that time factor built in. Just like the Best Buy date on when you go to Whole Foods and buy your whatever you buy, has Best Buy. There's an expiration date. So that is there. We also have an expiration date, and we get closer and closer every year. You know, the boy is thinking that he's never going to grow old, and the old man is thinking he's never going to grow young, right? Everyone is trying to stop time. Everyone is trying to stop time. You can't escape it. Everywhere they're trying to sell you the fountain of youth, whether it's hair restoration or skin restoration or brain restoration. And they make millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Health restoration. But there's nothing. Birth, death, disease, and old age. Janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha, dosha. Is it? Nothing else. But we're not so negative when we're out on the street. We just want to give people the understanding. Hey, you're not this body. Simple. We don't say, hey, you're going to die. Because remember on Rosh Hashanah, in 1976, there was this Christian guy following us down the parade route. The cops were very good. They wouldn't let him, because we had the whole avenue. They were trying to jump into the parade, and they had bullhorns. And it was basically like, repent, the end is near. And that's okay. We all know that. The end is near for every individual. It's not that there's going to be a cataclysmic destruction. It's described here. It's all on schedule. That's another thing we can reassure the people at large, because every moment or so, there's another disaster, another war, the coming famine. There's so many things. There's pestilence. These things are all detailed. People are now, all the Christians are like, whoa, this is Revelations. Pandemic, famine, war. This is everything. This is the 3 horsemen out of the 4. You're just waiting for the last sign. And but these things, we know it. We have how many years left? 427,000 more years. So we can tell them very accurately. So you have nothing to worry about except the fact that you need to become self-realized now in this life. Don't waste another moment. That's the point as far as the end is near. Yes, your end is near. And individually, one-on-one, when someone comes, like we have the Sunday feast tonight, people are not coming accidentally to the temple. If you think about your first visit to the temple, it wasn't an accident. When Srila Prabhupada met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his friend brought him there. Just imagine if he sat in the back and he never interacted with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's inconceivable how one thing can change the entire world, one situation. So you never know who is that person that you're going to meet. And we've said this before, and everyone has this, just like, what was that? Somebody posted today about meeting, who was that? Mukunda, that's right, the paramedic who came here in he joined, we opened the building for resident, 1983. We bought it in 1982, and after renovation, we opened officially like 1983. So many people came and went, and you never know who these people are at this point. And we've met them throughout our journey, the car dealer in Texas. I remember when the devotees went to buy their Sankirtan vans, the ubiquitous Dodge B300. It was our standard van. We made a lot of money. And, why did they buy them? Because Dodge Ram. So, there's every van had Ram on it. So, but we were buying all these vans, and they went to this, I think it was Dravaнаkshu who told me this. He was one of the drivers in the Radha Damodar bus. He would drive Vishnu Jan's bus and, many other buses, but such a sweet devotee. And they went into, and devotees didn't have like credit checks, credit histories, anything like that. There was not. He went in there, we want to buy a van. I said, okay, show us the money. And they weren't there, and the finance officer was doing what they do. This is like if anyone's ever been in a car dealership, the finance officer is the guy who closes the deal, adds all the add-ons and the superfluous dealer installed options, things you don't need, but this is where the dealership makes their money. So the devotees just want a bare van. They don't want anything else. And he's trying to figure out, well, how can I make money? And it's not looking very favorable. And then finally, the manager comes in and he looks at the finance officer and says, "Oh, these are Hare Krishnas? Yeah. Just do it." And the devotees are like, amazed. How is this happening? I don't know if they bought one band or three bands. I don't remember at the time. But then afterward, that person came out and said, yeah. I went to school at the University of Florida, UF. I said, you guys fed me every day for years. I don't know what I would have done. So this is the power of, Krishna Prasadam, Steve Jobs, that famous lecture when he told all those, people going out in the world that he used to walk across town for his one good meal at the Hare Krishna temple in the week. Walk across town. So this is, however it is. I don't know if that's why devotees like Apple above PC, but but there's some connection, obviously. There's lots of different little connections like that. You have to look for them, and then you'll find them. Even with former President Trump giving us access to, the Rath Yatra site down on the west side of Manhattan. Who would have known? And that sort of situation. We were refused by the people who are in the broker, because we didn't know it was for sale. We went down there, said, who do we ask to rent? We looked at the company. That company had already sold and closed the deal. And we said, well, who's the new company? And they said, no, they're not going to want to do anything with you. But, Toshan Krishna is very determined. If it wasn't for him, there wouldn't have been a Rath Yatra in 76. And he went and he found out who it was, and he got to their whatever front office, and they were like, well, we're not sure, but we'll check on it. And the answer came back, yeah, okay. The boss said it's okay. And he had to just go sign the papers. They told him, just come down, sign these papers. Went down to sign the papers, and there it is. Who's the boss? Who's the owner? Donald J. Trump. He was the one who said it was okay for insignificant amount of money. Insignificant at that time. So all these things there, you never know. And I know I repeat this regularly, but it's the reason that we have this temple. It's the only reason we have this temple. And it's the only reason we'll keep this temple, is if we use it for its intended purpose, which is to make devotees. Prabhupada said the only reason for a temple is to make devotees. So, why do certain things constantly come up, whether it's a discussion or a lecture about this particular point, is that everything we do has to have some focus. And while we can sit and speak philosophy and amongst ourselves, this is a little bit like what do they say? Preaching to the choir. Everyone here knows the philosophy. So we're simply trying to continue the effort. Like we saw here, Srila Prabhupada, he knew that the devotees were dependent on him in one sense for a certain emotional support at that time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have extended himself. And maybe he knew that because he wasn't there, people weren't attending the program. And for that reason, we should be extra diligent about making sure that everyone who is in the temple is attending the program. Especially Mangalarti and Guru Puja. I know we're a little slack on the evening program right now, but that should be renovated as well. Why? Because Prabhupada wanted it. So that's our duty to figure out how to implement it. It's a little tough now there, but we should figure out a way to. Sundar Artik used to be the most ecstatic Artik of the day. The most ecstatic. Mangal Artik wasn't a raucous, uproarious thing. It was a very simple, mellow kirtan. But Sundar Artik, the building used to shake, literally shake. Sunday feast also. We had to put special supports in the basement to hold up the temple room floor. Yeah, ask anyone on Henry Street. They'll remind you. They had these steel beams. They're called jack beams. You can adjust them for height. And they're used in construction when you're pouring a beam or something or doing any type of construction. But that, because it was an old building. It was wood, and it used to literally creak. If you were downstairs during that Artik, you could literally see the floor move like that. So we should have Sundar, because you'll never move this floor. It's solid concrete. But you'll make the tiles come up. Bhakti Henrik can confirm that. You'll make it. So the more ecstatic, we could tell how ecstatic the Artik is by how many tiles Bhakti Henrik has to go around and fix. So Sundar Artik should be on everyone's mind, how to put that back to its rightful position. And, now it's 6 to 6:30. It doesn't have to stay like that. But then we have to have pujaris who are willing to stay up a little later. It used to be 7 to 7:30. We even had a later Artik after that, the Sayana Artik, Sundar and Sayan. Right? Even that word, I remember when I heard it, I thought, wow, Sayan, Sayanara, Sayan. Sanskrit words in Japanese. Taking rest, goodbye, good night. So that we even had Tulsi Puja. The last Tulsi Artik was after the last Artik in the evening, after that 8 o'clock, 8:30 Artik. So it's amazing how many things Prabhupada had us engaged in all day long, up to the point of taking rest. Last thing was Tulsi Artik. So, we're not trying to create something new, but everyone should have at least the history in his mind, what the potential is here at a certain point. If we have the way the temple was when we were there on 55th Street, on Henry Street, we were 130 devotees. On 55th Street, we were 230 devotees. 230 devotees, right? So there's a lot of potency there. So many books distributed. It's amazing how many books. New York was #1 for years in book distribution. We dominated. But that's something that we can also work on, right, Chaitanya? Yeah. So the main thing we should try to understand is that this time is relentless. It's not letting up. We've also just gone over some time here now, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, it's gone. Prabhupada was commenting in Mayapur. He said, I forget the date that he mentioned, but he said, now this date This is gone. You can never get this date back again. For all the gold in the world, that moment is gone. So don't waste time. Right? And Shakespeare said it very eloquently, right? In my youth, I wasted time. Now doth time waste me. Right? So it's a fact. And you can use it effectively in certain literary circles if you happen to be preaching at colleges. And you'll be surprised, and Arjuna is going to resurrect the college preaching program single-handedly. Oh, very good. We have Long Island University, New York University, John Jay City University, Columbia University, these all here, right here. Well, these, City University, which used to be John Jay. I don't know if it still is John Jay. Used to be John Jay criminology departments where we all used to go for, if you wanted to become whatever, cop, lawyer, this or that. Long Island University is right here, huge campus. We have to exploit before their minds are fully slaughtered. We have to go in there and we have to try to save them. Just like save the cow. And Bala Bhaja is always, going to the slaughterhouses and, trying to, buy these animals which are destined for slaughter. So we're also we're not buying them directly, but we're buying them indirectly because we're influencing them to make the right decisions. And so in that way, they'll be saved. And this is our duty. It's not, we're not just some insular, secular cult that only is concerned with our own, preservation. No, our whole duty is by definition missionary. By duty missionary. By definition missionary. So we should never forget this and think that, no, I'll just kind of hang out up on the 4th floor or in the library or, all these little nooks in, all these little Balaram Hall. We don't want to create new hiding places. One devotee, we used to have we would store books just like every place else. They would have the book pallets, and then they would take a few boxes out of the center and create enough space to lie down. And so they're sleeping with the books. I don't know if they get made any advancement, but as a temple commander, I used to rack my brain. Where are these people hiding? 230 people, over 100 brahmacharis. Where are these guys? I want the floors cleaned. I want the kitchen cleaned. I have to go around, look here. Hide and seek on the transcendental level. But, that's okay. That's, it is what it is. Worries. But it was certainly interesting, how to find devotees in that circumstance, such a big building, 77,000 square feet, 11 floors, plus 2 sub-basements. And they could be any place. And in many cases they were. But here it's a little easier. So if you have to go look for them, there's still not so many places yet to hide. So any questions or comments? We'll read the verse again. Just remember what we're supposed to be talking about. Vidura inquired from Maitreya, "O my Lord, O greatly learned sage, kindly describe eternal time, which is another form of the Supreme Lord, the wonderful actor. What are the symptoms of that eternal time? Please describe them to us in detail." What are the symptoms? I think he's getting you a microphone. Yes, he is. Matanga Prabhu.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. I liked your statement of thousands of years of knowledge dwelling in the hearts of these devotees. But what we see many times is like Chaitanya Kripa Prabhu goes out and he starts explaining to someone the philosophy, but not so many people are appreciating. Very, very few can actually listen and connect with that. So that's very unfortunate from one perspective.
Well, Prabhupada gave us a time limit, 3 minutes. Whatever you have to say, remember we discussed that initially. What does expert mean? Quickly and efficiently. So you have to become master of the minute. When you're giving that book, you have to, the clock should start ticking in your brain. You know, you read that person. Vaisheshika Prabhu was expert, but not just him. I mean, all the devotees used to be expert. You know, we had Divyanga, we have Pragosh, we had Sarvabhauma, all these, you know, we had Yadu Ganguli, we had Sanjaya. These were all the Maharatas, you know, Brigupati. So many of these devotees, I'm talking about, you know, my generation of time, Buddhi Manta, the first big book distributor, Buddhi Manta Prabhu. Even when half his brain had been removed due to cancer, when he came to Vrindavan, every day he would go in front of Krishna Balaram Mandir with as many small books as he could carry. And he would distribute books. And he couldn't speak Hindi. But he would make sure somehow or other that he would put that book in that person's hand. And once that happens in India, the person is obliged to give you something. I mean, everyone has been, you just have to get it in their hands. And he would do that. But at a certain point, he couldn't do it any longer. But and of course, he had friends. I think it was Bhaktidas who arranged for him to come. You know, this is what God brothers are for, to make sure. Otherwise, what's he going to do? He's going to be in a hospice someplace. You know, after the operation, they didn't know how much. But when he came to Vrindavan, he was just like, for those few months, he was completely the old Buddhi Manta. You know, he remembered everything and everyone. And you know, it just goes to show you that that the brain is just a physical thing. It's not the seat of the mind or the intelligence. You know, because like I said, it was practically gone. There was nothing there. You know, you could the scar on his head was, you know, unmistakable and unavoidable. It was so huge. But that's the that's the consciousness that he had developed over the years. That was how he ultimately identified himself. You know, so there was no interruption except for that time. So we have to have that singular determination, if possible, you know, that this is our duty. You know, up until the point of, just like Prabhupada's duty, he felt, and we don't know, we're not trying to read his mind, but you see that up until the time of death, what was he doing? He was translating the books. You see, the microphone is being held to his practically lifeless body, and Prabhupada is giving the purports to the 10th canto. You know, so this is, you know, so Buddhi Mata, we could understand, was a disciple that Srila Prabhupada was very proud of. You know, up to the point of death. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.